All right, good morning everyone and welcome to our webinar. We're going to be talking about a tactical plan for taking your business to the next level. I'm Robin Gordy and I'm here joined by Kevin and Asher from Avalara and Right Networks. We'll get started in just a moment, but I'll jump into the housekeeping slide here just so that everyone is aware. You'll be on mute to start with. We can read the questions, and we'd love it if you'd submit them via the question box. If we don't get to your answer, we will be following up after the webinar directly, so although we have time set aside for Q&A, please don't worry, we will follow up in case we don't get to your question. We can also download the slides in PDF format. That's in the handout section of your GoToWebinar panel, and we'll be emailing the webinar recording and the slides to everyone who's registered after we finish. During the presentation, if you'd like to engage with us on Twitter, we'll be using the hashtag #TacticalPlan. All right, now moving into the agenda, we'll get into some introductions in just a moment, and we'll talk through the key players in the e-commerce ecosystem, sort of dig into why it is that e-commerce is no longer optional, some fun stats in there, and then why we all know that e-commerce breeds chaos, and how integration is the key to solving this problem. Following that, we have the panel here, and we'll discuss a couple key questions, and again, save time for some of that Q&A. All right, diving right in, we have our presenters here. I'll start off with Kevin. Kevin Rusa is the Director of Sales at Right Networks. He focuses on understanding customer business needs and objectives in order to drive growth and new customer acquisition. The key to his success is establishing and maintaining strong customer relationships. On the right is Asher Matthew. He's the Director of Strategic Alliances at Avalara. With his deep knowledge in sales, marketing, and business development, Asher leads a team focused on working with partners to align business models with technology. And in the middle there, I'm Rob. I'm here from WebGility. I'm the Head of Product and Operations, and my goal here is to make sure that we all understand just how painful e-commerce can be, but see a path towards solving that issue. So let's dig into who the players are. I'll let Asher take over here to talk about Avalara.
Thanks, Rob. Hi, everybody. My name is Asher Matthew, and from Avalara, we have taken on the challenge to automate every single sales and use tax transaction in the world. And we were founded in 2004, and we're now about 12 years into it. We were chosen by about tens of thousands of businesses globally. We recently just started our offering in India and Brazil. And we've been working on helping customers in EMEA. So wherever you are or wherever you think you want to do business around the world, we can help you. And I'm happy to be here to discuss the challenges of e-commerce.
Excellent. Thank you, Asher. And another key person in the industry, part of the ecosystem here, is Right Networks. So Kevin, if you can give us a quick overview.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Rob. And I want to thank all you guys for joining us today, and appreciate WebGility inviting us on here with Avalara to discuss some of these e-commerce situations going on with you guys. So if you guys don't know who we are the world leader of hosted QuickBooks. We primarily focus on desktop accounting software and bringing it to the cloud and helping small, medium businesses like yourself leverage the cloud to become more successful, expand your services, and start to streamline processes and workflows. In addition to QuickBooks that we'll talk about for a little bit, we do have 400 plus other desktop and applications that we host for, such as WebGility and Avalara. And I'll talk a little bit about our partnership, how those integrate, and how we kind of all work together. But it's really a pleasure to be here with everybody.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. And now about WebGility, part of the reason why we bring some of these folks together is because we really view ourselves as the connective tissue between some of the best in the industry. We are the maker of a product called Unify, which connects sales channels to the accounting system, helps streamline financial data, and keep the back office running smoothly as an e-commerce and a retail business begins to scale. Our solutions are for multi-channel e-commerce businesses and designed to help them, again, streamline those operations. At this point, we're compatible with a little over 80 e-commerce platforms, including Amazon, eBay, QuickBooks, and Xero. And we help our customers at this point process just a little over 2.5 million orders a month, saving them north of $7.6 million and 350,000 hours. So we're all in good company, and we'll dig into why e-commerce is no longer optional. Hopefully everybody on here is clear that this is sort of an obvious statement, but in case we need to make the argument, it's pretty clear you should be where your customers are, right? Especially as you sell more and more niche products, the need to reach a global audience in order to find those niche customers becomes more and more important. Omnichannel as a descriptor of being both online, offline, and having a consistent experience for customers is more and more the way to win at retail, so that when somebody is going online to look at your brand or identify some products they're interested in, if they come into a retail store, they get a very similar experience. And part of the goal for that is to combat both showrooming and web rooming. Showrooming is where a consumer goes into a retail store to try on or touch and feel an object, and then goes online to try to purchase it for a less expensive or more convenient option. And the opposite being, instead of going into a retail store, they're researching their products online, looking up reviews, and then instead of purchasing on the online channel, they're going in to find it in a physical location. And that can be hard because you can't guarantee that someone is going to follow your own company, both online and offline, unless you make it very simple and easy. Online stores, however, give you a lot of product flexibility. It's not required that you have something on a shelf. So for certain industries where maybe your objects are heavy or they're large or you have 1,000 variations, it makes a lot of sense to focus on an online store to keep that flexibility. You're also able to sell in many different locations instead of just a single brick and mortar storefront. So a lot of ways that e-commerce has become the de facto way to reach customers and really succeed at retail. We talked about a little bit of this just a minute ago, but what does e-commerce really do for your business? Obviously, it allows you to get more visibility than the foot traffic that crosses a retail storefront, which then translates into a larger audience. What that really means, though, the important factor here is that it translates to a larger audience. The exponential scale of being able to sell across different marketplaces and sales channels, it reduces the overhead since you're not paying for a retail location. There's no rent. There's probably a small cost for a shopping cart or marketplace, but nothing close to your showroom. And then obviously, as all of those things fit together, increased revenue and decreased cost are huge benefits. And as one example, we actually have a client that we bring out here as an example pretty often called Wedding Collectibles. They were at one point just a mom and pop retail location which sold collectible items for wedding events. After moving online, they were actually able to increase several 100% of their overall sales and do that with an increase in efficiency. So lots of benefits, and we'll get into more details there in the future. So we'll pause here to take a question. Our first poll is, what do you as an audience member anticipate to be your biggest challenge in 2017? As an audience member, first option is integrating into all the apps and platforms, which kind of indicates that you're already on top of the different functions that you're needing, but maybe need to improve the operational efficiency. Then reducing the time and wasted effort doing manual work means there's probably some parts of the business that might need a specialized application. Adding new sales channels without adding more chaos. Obviously, everybody wants more sales leading into the holiday season. Getting meaningful information out of my data, that's obviously a huge benefit to anybody who can glean good analytics from their data and making sure that they're continuing to improve. And then making sure everybody has access to the info they need for the sales process, for the internal team operations. Very, very good bedrock of ensuring the company can scale. Asher or Kevin, have you guys heard of any of these being key issues for your particular customers?
Yeah, absolutely. This is Kevin. You know, reducing the time wasted doing manual work is huge. I think a lot of people in today's world are looking to streamline their operations and really try to take maybe any type of data entry or any of these manual processes that have helped build a small medium business. Sometimes they have issues letting them go, and what you want to do is work through that and streamline those processes, make them automated so you can become much more efficient. And don't be afraid of change. I think that's something that a lot of small, medium businesses do struggle with these days.
Right on. Asher, anything there?
I totally agree with what Kevin was saying. One thing that I would like to add is anytime I hear about reducing time that's wasted and automation and stuff, it's really important to also understand all that's time and money that you're going to save, what are you going to do with it? Because the minute you figure out what you're going to do with that time and money that is saved, the path to automation and reducing time wasted will work itself out.
That's a great point. Looking at the results here, it seems like a lot of the attendees today recognize exactly what they're going to do with their extra time. They're going to be trying to add new sales channels without adding any more chaos. Right now that's coming in at 33% of the total respondents, which is huge. Right behind that, two responses at 26% are integrating all my apps, so clearly in the right place to understand how to do that, and then getting meaningful information out of my data. So we'll take a couple moments to discuss that in the future. Reducing the time wasted doing manual work, I think, is implicit in here, but that came in with 15% total. All right, so let's go back to talking about the chaos that e-commerce breeds. So it's not your imagination. Anybody on the call who realizes that there's a ton of chaos, it's really not. When you think about an old model of retail, it was pretty simple. You had your product, you talked to a person who walked up to you, and after they gave you some form of currency, you handed them a thing. But when you separate the merchant and the buyer by thousands or hundreds of thousands of miles, suddenly it gets a lot more complex. So being able to fulfill appropriately, managing shipping costs, understanding where inventory sits, and then when you consider adding new sales channels, suddenly your inventory is multiplying magically, right? If you say you have 5 tennis balls and you say that on 4 different channels, the world may think that you actually have 20 different tennis balls. So keeping everything in line with the disparate data and the plethora of apps that you're working through is a really critical part of why there's so much chaos. And logistics really becomes that key component of moving things together. We at Agility obviously think that there's a big part of that that's being missed with financial data, so getting the right insights and ensuring that the accounting and bookkeeping is up to date. And I'm sure Kevin and Asher can totally agree that there's many pieces of this puzzle, one being sales tax, another just simply being collaboration in the same system. So speaking of multiple systems and many hassles, I'll turn this over to Kevin. If you want to talk a little bit about how this becomes so difficult and what we can do about it.
Yeah, absolutely. With multiple systems today really can cause increased hassles on a business. So many separate applications mean you have a lot of balls in the air. I mean, typically what that means for folks is, when you have many applications, you typically need to try to streamline those processes, get them kind of communicating and not have them all on their own kind of separate island. I know some of this has the ability to, data that's in multiple systems needs to be up to date and accurate. So if you have people viewing different systems and not viewing each application or all being on the same page, you start to get different data and different insights, and people start to make different business decisions, not based off the general assumption of accessing pretty much the same data there. So you really can't afford to waste time duplicating data between systems. Make sure everyone's streamlined and on the same page, and then additionally you need to make sure that you are tax compliant going forward there.
Absolutely. And speaking of tax compliance, I'll hand this over to Asher. He can go into detail since he is the expert on sales tax and how to handle that.
Thanks, Rob. It's very rare that a webinar reminds you of your early career, but as I look back, earlier, actually one job ago, I was helping companies with multi-channel commerce as well. And when you speak about putting yourself on the internet and selling through the internet and just reaching new audiences, new markets and stuff, the things that come to your mind are, how am I going to get credit cards done? How am I going to take payments, right? Can I do checks? Can I do payments? Then Once you take the payment, then you say, okay, well, how am I going to ship to these people and how fast can I ship? Rarely do people actually focus on the sales tax component of it. And it wasn't actually until I joined Avalara 6 years ago and started to dive into what is this sales tax stuff all about that I realized that sales tax in itself is a statutory requirement. If you're doing business in the States and in many other countries, you're required to collect and remit all those taxes. But if you look at it from a business's perspective, any time you spend doing anything sales tax related, whether it's you're figuring out what the rates are, whether you're figuring out where you're going to ship the items to, because that is a component of how you figure out the tax rate, all of that time is non-revenue generating. So then I said, okay, well, if we look at this equation and say, fine, the sales tax, anytime you spend on sales tax is non-revenue generating, then what makes it so hard to figure this stuff out? And as I went through my education at Avalara, I really realized there was a couple different things that made the sales tax very complicated. One, in the US, you have over 14,000 different tax jurisdictions. And if you go to this URL called avataxmaps.com, you'll actually see all the tax jurisdictions in the US that we've actually gone out and mapped so that you can see how complex it is to figure out what an item is taxed at where. So the first piece is the rate. How do you figure out what is the rate for that specific item? And if you look at the screen right now, you'll see in the red color that we have a sales tax rate jurisdiction mapped out. There are 9 houses on to the right, and there is this one house in the middle that is not part of this tax jurisdiction. How does that happen, right? So when we look at this even more introspectively or granularly, we see that all the local politics that's involved in lining out all these tax jurisdictions really make up the first piece of the equation, which is the basic rate. So when you look at like 8.5%, 9%, 11%, like, that is a composite of multiple different types of rates that go into making that rate, but it all starts with the basic rate. So let's say it's 5% for the basic rate here. Then things get a little bit more complicated. And they get more complicated because depending on which item you are selling, that specific item could be taxed differently in a jurisdiction versus differently in a different jurisdiction. So I'll give you an example. We love the color orange at Avalara, and orange juice is, I believe, taxed like 20 different ways in the US. I was down at the F1 races earlier this year, and I realized that when you buy boots, the skin of the animal that is used to make those boots, depending on that, the tax rate is different for different types of boots. I mean, it just gets ridiculous and ridiculous when you have over 1 million items that you're selling on the internet. So the first piece was the basic rate. Then what we call product taxability allows you to understand which item is taxed when and where and how. And then there's the third piece, which is the sourcing rule. And the sourcing rule means depending upon the state or the jurisdiction, you're either going to use the origination address of that transaction or the destination address. So if you take one concept away from this presentation, it's this, that the tax rate by itself is complicated because of those 3 different factors. The basic rate, which we can attribute to local politics, the product taxability, which is the different items get taxed differently, and then the sourcing rule. Together, they make a sales tax rate, and that's what we do at Avalara. We take out the complexity of calculating any item's sales tax rate anywhere in the world, and we provide that to you in your system of record in less than a second. But we don't stop just there. We move the process further by helping businesses collect those sales tax rate, calculate, then we collect those monies via the transactions that are happening, and then we help businesses file those returns, because just like you do a personal income tax return, you have to do a sales tax return, and the frequency of those returns depends on where you're doing business. Sometimes it can be on a quarterly basis, sometimes it can be on an annual basis. Just depends on where you're doing business. But in order to give you a one-stop shop experience, we calculate the tax, we help you figure out how and when and where to file those returns. Then we help you remit the monies. And just in case one of those taxing entities has a question about some line item on that return, we'll help you come back and answer those questions. Now, when we look at all of this time that's used across all the tens of thousands of customers that we have, we basically see on average there's about 12, 13 monthly hours that businesses spend calculating sales tax, about 19 hours managing exemption certificates, which is what I'll talk about in a second, and then the most important one is 11 hours, which is you spend filing and remitting that sales tax.
Hey, Asher, this is a great time. We had two really good questions that came in. Hopefully you can answer these. The first one, somebody who's based in Canada selling to the U.S., do they need to collect U.S. sales tax, or are they just looking at tax for Canadian buyers?
Yeah, so this is another interesting piece. And the U.S. side of the equations calls it a nexus. And if you are either registered or in the U.S. as a business, or you're doing multiple trips to the U.S., all of this depends on how you establish nexus and in which state you're doing those transactions. So what I would recommend for you is to speak with a tax advisor. We have tax advisors on staff, because it just depends. Like, you could be selling chocolates and not have nexus, or you could be selling boots and have nexus. And that's why this thing is a little bit complicated. So I would recommend calling us up. Or if you drop your contact information in the chat box, I will have a tax advisor give you a buzz so they can look at your unique situation and prescribe you how we may or may not be able to help you.
That's a great one. And there's a follow-up to that in a similar vein that I think is just a yes-no. A business that's located in New York State was under the impression that they only had to collect New York tax. Is that correct or incorrect?
So again, you're probably not going to like this either, but the answer is it depends. It depends on if the items that if you're only doing business in New York State and not shipping items outside of New York State at all, I can firmly say that you're only required to collect tax in that state. But if you are by chance shipping items outside of New York State, you need to speak with one of our tax advisors to really understand whether any activity that your business does creates a nexus for you. And if it does, then you may have to collect sales tax.
Awesome. That continues the theme that sales tax is incredibly complex. Thanks for that.
Yep. So the last piece I wanted to talk to you about was exemption certificates. Now, from time to time, you will have customers that come up to you and say, hey, I am a government entity, or I am a wholesaler, or I am an education entity. You should not be charging me sales tax. Fine. In that case, what you're required to do as a business is have a paper-based certificate, exemption certificate, which you file back to the taxing entities to let them know why you did not collect the sales tax for those transactions. And so at Avalara, again, just like the theme that we have around automation, we've created an electronic way for you to manage those exemption certificates. Because if anybody on the phone has been through an audit or a sales tax audit, what happens is the auditors come in, and the first thing they go and say is, show me your exemption certificates. And if you have exemption certificates that are not current, because you have to validate them on a quarterly or some scheduled basis, right? They now have purpose to open your books. Because right away they know that you have an exemption certificate that is expired and you're doing business in that state, so we need to look into that. And then they start looking into your books, and that's how the whole journey starts. So what we've done, to sum it up at Avalara, is provided a one-stop shop experience for calculation, filing and remittance, and exemption certificates. And I'd like to close on the point that I made earlier is if you take all this time and you figure out what you could be doing with this time, the case for automation is pretty simple.
Excellent.
Back to you, Carl.
Yep, totally agree. And that brings us into the next point. Once we finally have all of this extra time, we obviously want to make sure that we're running our business as smoothly as possible so we don't just move on to the next headache. And that brings up integration as a key to that scalability and moving forward. So talking about the benefits of integration, you obviously want to make sure that your business is represented at least in one place as a whole, because you don't look at your business as a compilation of different apps. You look at your business as a business. And so to streamline the operations and scale your business, it makes a lot of sense to be able to look at your entire business in one place. Whether that be your inventory, whether that be your sales or your financial data, or even just your entire business's sales tax, each of these pieces is only useful in context with the rest. So in order to save the time and money and keep your peace of mind, you want to make sure that the entirety of your business data is up to date and that you're set up to provide better, faster customer service without letting any balls drop. And a key way to do that is obviously to integrate the specialized apps that you're using to make better decisions. So looking specifically at the process of integrating, aggregating, and automating data, a big benefit and a big efficiency gain is finding tools that aid in the collaboration to make workflows more smooth, more efficient. Obviously, you want to leverage the systems that you already have in place, but to the extent that you can continue to grow with systems that already integrate and already work together, you're saving yourself an integration headache. Obviously, each application that you add has its own unique value, from sales tax to hosting for your QuickBooks file to something like WebGility, where we're streamlining all of the order and financial data. Each one serves its purpose, and you want to make sure that they're being added to improve a process that already exists or improve a process that you're looking to establish. As many people mentioned, expanding to new sales channels is a key growth strategy and something looking forward to in 2017. So thinking through sales channels that complement each other and already work with the rest of your back office systems is a key part of evaluating each place. And then in general, as you try to make your business more efficient, as you look to make better decisions, creating a data-focused culture will grow out of this integration process. So as you get more data, as you're able to view your business as a holistic process, new data comes to light and you're able to make smarter and better decisions and slowly move the business from a gut decision to a data-based decision, which obviously helps as we grow. So again, you obviously want to make sure that you can integrate and collaborate wherever you are, and this is a great time to again turn it over to Kevin to talk a little bit more about how to do that in the cloud.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. And just continuing on Rob's kind of conversation there, where he did a great job really highlighting and explaining the benefits of finding those applications that integrate well to really power your business. And that's exactly what we do at Right Networks. We have our whole application directory has been built off of small medium businesses and accounting firms, small medium businesses like yourself that have recommended or had requested getting these applications like Avalara and WebGility up into our hosted environment because they see the value in these applications and need them to integrate directly with QuickBooks. So, you know, what we try to do is get all those hosted integrated desktop apps in the cloud to really improve collaboration and productivity. So, you know, in terms of collaboration, it's really something that we want to ensure you have in place when talking about taking your business to the next level and having a tactical plan for 2017. Collaboration is really key for a number of reasons. And here I have a couple of examples that really kind of highlight collaboration and what it can do for a business. The first one here would be the remote employees get access to the same information and data in real time. Now, the remote landscape or working remotely has really changed drastically in the past, I would say 10, even 5 years. back a while ago, you probably felt like you were on an island by yourself and really couldn't communicate with other folks or really get any other visibility into the business. And nowadays, with the amount of options out there for cloud-based platforms and hosted applications and SaaS applications and integrated applications, you really can all be on the same page and do not have to be in the same office anymore. So it's really a great time to work remotely because you can still collaborate with coworkers and you don't feel like everything's happening at the office that you're missing out on. You're all on the same page and everyone can kind of see edits in real time and be logging into the same environment and utilizing all these cloud-based applications. So the visibility is clear across the entire organization. The next one there, example would be business partners, like your accountant or your bookkeeper are actively engaged in your business. And this is a really powerful one for you guys if you have an accountant out there and you do provide them, let's say if you're a QuickBooks user and you provide them with direct access to your QuickBooks company files in a cloud-based environment, you really can then, I guess, obtain more value from that accountant because they're able to really offer to you more than just the commodity services that you might be getting from them. So if you're receiving bookkeeping or maybe tax services once a year, things like that, that's great, but you really could get more value out of that accountant if they had real-time access to your files and they're able to be more actively engaged in your business on even it doesn't have to be day-to-day, maybe weekly, maybe monthly, and then they kind of turn more into a financial consultant and they almost elevate their role with your company and you're gaining more services and more value out of that accountant and they can really kind of financially guide you so that's not something you have to take on there yourself. So definitely a huge part of collaboration and getting folks on the same page. The last one in a, I don't know if we have any franchise organizations out there or franchisees, but the franchise owners have a really unique benefit of collaboration or getting folks into a cloud-based environment because they can see all of their locations from one specific login and really be able to measure performance between locations and have real-time insights and access to what is happening at each specific location, which was really a challenge for franchises in the past. So those are probably three main key examples I could think of collaborating in the cloud. But again, it's 2016, coming up on 2017. Collaboration is really going to be key. And if you guys have not really kind of thought about that in terms of your business model, I would really encourage you guys incorporating that going into the next year.
Definitely. Couldn't agree more, Kevin. Thank you. Awesome overview of how that's going to be a big improvement for businesses. So with that, we'll continue forward and we're moving into the panel discussion. We've got a couple pre-set questions that each of our panelists is going to go through and answer with some points and potentially some good examples. And surprise, surprise, it's the three of us. So same three folks, looking forward to answering some of these questions. The first one that we're going to start off with is to discuss the challenges facing e-commerce sellers specifically. And I'll jump in to Asher first to talk about what are some of the key challenges that you at Avalara see for e-commerce sellers.
So there's a couple different ways to look at this. I'll take the government side of the view first, right? Because traditionally, the way businesses have established Nexus is that they have a physical presence, they have a sales rep that's going to a different state like multiple times, or they're doing some sort of activity that has established Nexus. And the minute you establish Nexus, you as a business have to collect sales tax. Now, in the e-commerce world, there isn't the notion of a physical presence. So how does the government tackle that? So in different states, there is this notion of an economic nexus, and what that means is depending upon the GMV, which is the gross merchandise value that you are selling into a state, you will be establishing nexus, and so you have to start collecting sales tax. And so as you are starting off into leveraging the power of the internet and selling into different states and expanding your businesses, I would highly recommend to have a conversation with a tax advisor and have them explain to them what you're trying to do, where you're trying to do it, how many customers are you going to get, And just to make sure that when that economic nexus is triggered, you then go in and start collecting sales tax. Then the second piece comes around, well, let's say you have been selling over the internet and you haven't collected sales tax. What do you do then? Because technically you were supposed to, but you didn't do it. Now if you get audited, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So what we do here at Avalara is there's a process called the voluntary disclosure. And we can walk you, because we have state auditors as staff members as well, or ex-state auditors, I should say. And we can work with those guys and help you make it whole with that taxing entity to tell, basically, you're basically just coming up and saying, look, I messed up. I was supposed to collect it, I didn't collect it, or I collected it, I never remitted it, and we're coming clean. But there's a process for that, and it's as cumbersome as an audit, so we have people on staff that can help you with that. So if you're starting off and you don't know how much you collect where, have a conversation. If you are already in e-commerce business and you're not, you have collected sales tax but have not remitted it, or you're not collecting sales tax but you have an economic nexus, again, have a conversation and we'll help you go from there.
Excellent. Definitely a huge challenge facing e-commerce sellers, and one that doesn't seem like it's going to be going away anytime soon. So thank you for that, Asher. And Kevin, any thoughts on the biggest challenges facing e-commerce sellers?
Yeah, I would, two kind of come to mind. The first one is, these are mostly digital businesses, these e-commerce platforms, so they probably have folks located all across, spread across a state or a full country or multiple countries. So again, it goes back to having separate applications installed on everyone's local system that they might be working on, and really trying to bring all those and unify all those into one location so that everybody's accessing the same live data. So depending on what people have existing on each one of their local PCs, that's only seen by that one person, or maybe it's a server in their office and only a couple people have access to it, where the entire organization is still not on the same page. So I think bringing those locations and separate entities together by choosing, a cloud platform that's going to work for them. And then the second part of that is choosing the right apps to leverage in the cloud to really become more successful and utilize the cloud for what it's supposed to be. So again, getting all those separate locations on the same page. The second thing I can think of as a challenge is for e-commerce sellers is really customer expectations these days. They're really changing year over year, as every year we see a dramatic increase in people shopping online. And they really typically expect this, full self-service type of portal where you have a shopping cart, you add all these things in there, and then you kind of check out. And in terms of shopping these days, that's kind of what it's turned into, especially with the millennials. That is exactly how they like to purchase products and kind of move forward. And with large companies like Amazon Prime and things like that, I think the expectations that the orders need to be processed much faster and the delivery of these products needs to be much faster as well. So these smaller companies that might have some of those antiquated processes that we talked about earlier, like manual, manual work processes, really need to think about streamlining their services or streamlining their internal kind of way they process things. So you streamline with, shopping cart integration from Agility, you got your sales tax automation, and maybe you move your database and all your desktop stuff to the cloud so that everybody can be on the same page, and you can start to kind of compete with some of those larger companies that have those really quick, fast turnaround times and still be really relative in the e-commerce conversation.
Excellent points, and that actually dovetails into a little bit of retail data that we pulled up before this. At this point, Forrester is actually expecting that over 44% of total retail sales will be impacted by the web in 2016. That's a total of $1.7 trillion of offline, brick-and-mortar, in-person retail sales that are influenced in one way or the other by the web. So especially making sure that everybody's on the same page is really, really critical as we head into the busiest holiday shopping season of the year. And from Agility's perspective, obviously there's a ton of challenges we talked about in the chaos section, but I'd like to bring out one example, which I mentioned before, was the wedding collectibles. They've been a long-time client of ours, so we've been able to see them grow from what was effectively a one-location retail and wholesale wedding collectible retailer And they've actually been able to grow to, I want to say, 5 different channels right now: Amazon, eBay, multiple online shopping carts, and some Etsy stores as well. And along the way, they were actually very, very thoughtful in how they expanded their sales channels and their business processes to take a lot of what both Asher and Kevin have mentioned into consideration. And they actually, in the process, while they were expanding, dropped their fulfillment time for an order from close to 2 weeks down to a day to day and a half. So it really is possible to grow and scale while also improving the business operations if you're really thoughtful about how you choose different business applications. Which brings us into the next question. From both of your perspectives, Kevin and Asher, what would you look for when you're choosing new business systems or potentially replacing some old ones? Asher, I'll kick it off with you.
Sure. So when looking for a business system, I would actually take one step back and look at what your goal is as a business, because then the system helps you get there faster, right? And so I'll take tax for an example. Today, we are helping customers not only take advantage of the rich selling environment of the US, but also now look at emerging markets, right? So we're helping some customers prepare for India. We're helping some customers prepare for Brazil. We have a large contingent, I should say Avalara contingent in EMEA that's helping our customers expand their businesses out there. So there's customers, we see 2 types of customers now, right? People that are in those emerging countries that want to take advantage of the high GDP of the US and they want to do business here. And then we have the rock stars of the US saying, we want to take advantage of every little opportunity in the world in these emerging markets, so what do we do there? So if your goal is to expand externally, then look for that type of a system and go for automation first. If you're international and then you want to take advantage of the US market, then look at the system that has local breadth of the country, and always go for the products and people who are present in those local countries, not like somebody who's really headquartered in the US but it's doing business or helping business in Singapore, but they don't have any local people there. Like, how do you get that ground level knowledge?
Excellent points. Kevin, any thoughts on how to choose business applications?
Yeah, and I think, Asher, you had a great point about, from a high-level view, what is your goal? What do you want to get out of these business systems? It's to get a little bit more detailed. One thing that comes to mind is I would look for systems that are, depending on what you're looking for, fully managed for your business. And by fully managed, I mean, removing the IT aspect of you managing the technology, deploying your own application updates, upgrades, managing a backup system, deploying new security. Look for business systems that are really going to complement what you do without bringing on more burdens or more work for that IT side of the house. So if you're launching new systems internally, if you're going to do it on premise, think about the work and what might have to go into that. And there's so many fully managed solutions out there today that you shouldn't have to handle that stuff anymore. There's so many cloud-based offerings where taking something like that on can really, again, produce much more of those mundane IT technology tasks that might come up on a regular daily basis, as opposed to you focusing on growing your business and really kind of leveraging these new fully managed services to become more successful. A couple other things I think about too is integration between systems. So you want to make sure these systems can communicate effectively and efficiently. It's great to have multiple applications that are all rockstar, awesome applications, but if they're not communicating to each other and working together, then you're really no better off. So you want to have an ecosystem of applications and business systems that all communicate and work well together. And last but not least, I think you want them to somewhat have a relationship with each other. So it might not have to be as tight as a relationship as the 3 of us, with WebGility and Avalara working together, but make sure they're aware of each other so that if you run into some type of support issues or you need some type of help from any of the companies, it's going to be much easier for them to pinpoint a resolution if they're aware of the other applications and the integrations that they have kind of out in the market space. So those would be kind of the top ones that come to my mind.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. That brings up something that we discuss internally here at WebGility a lot, is that you definitely want to find systems, first of all, that suit a particular need, and it's an expanding universe of SaaS applications that are designed to be simple, easy to deploy, and centrally managed by the company, so you don't have to worry about uptime and a lot of those IT burdens. It's definitely turning into a universe of selection in that type of space. However, as you point out, there is a significant amount of consideration that needs to be put into the integration, and something that we've realized as we talk to other people, especially as new customers come to us with frustrations, it's not as easy as just looking at the integrations page for a particular business, because there is such a need for checking the box and saying, yes, I work with these 50 or 70 or 90 other applications, but really understanding what that means. There are, in too many cases, what we like to call faux integrations or fake integrations that don't do enough to really be useful. So really dig in with any new system that you're looking at and understand how does it really work with the rest of your applications and the rest of your business process to make sure that it's not just a check-the-box type of simple integration that won't really help you as you scale. And scaling is obviously both system integration as well as people collaboration. So the final question we wanted to understand from the panelists is, what are the two key things that a business needs for effective collaboration? And we'll start with Kevin in reverse order this time.
Okay, sounds good. I think I probably could have a laundry list, so I'm going to try to shorten these up, but there are definitely a couple of key things that stick out in terms of collaboration, and it's obviously something that we primarily focus on here, so it's something that we get really excited about. But the first one is really the anytime, anywhere access, and I know it sounds like something that shouldn't be something that people are missing these days, but a lot of businesses are, and again, it's 2016, I can get to my email, I can get to my calendar, I can get to my bank account or my home security system all from my phone. So why shouldn't I be able to get to my business critical data from mobile devices? If I'm a small, medium business, I should not have to be in the office necessarily to run my organization or to be able to answer questions or make intelligent or educational decisions regarding my business. So I think the anytime, anywhere access is key and sometimes gets overlooked because everybody has access to so many things these days, except to a lot of their business processes and a lot of these applications that they use on an everyday basis, which is really shocking. In addition to that, I think real-time data is also really important in terms of the collaboration piece. So, with folks accessing one secure location of live data and edits and changes reflected in real time, it really, again, I know I've said it a couple times, but it ensures everyone's on the same page and work isn't getting duplicated and everyone knows exactly what each person's working on and has visibility and insights into what each person is kind of contributing to the puzzle there. And the last thing I can think of is simultaneous user access from multiple locations. Again, in the new highly online collaborative world, the days of saying, hey, Rob, can you log out of that software so I can log in and do my work, those are gone. Those are very, very old school ways of working and are very counterproductive. So you need to be able to effectively collaborate and log in simultaneously and get your work done at the same time as someone else is getting their work done. And last but not least, I would say security. You want to make sure that going with an online collaborative platform is great because you get all these awesome benefits of accessing it anywhere and it's fully managed, but make sure it's secure and make sure that that is something that you have your T's crossed and your I's dotted, that the security is there and you're not going to run into any issues with your brand new online kind of collaborative system there.
Excellent, excellent points. Asher, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, so Kevin took the angle of process and tools. I'd like to take the people angle, right? And if you want effective collaboration to transcend your organization, you've got to make sure that the leadership is collaborating. So in this post sales is sales and marketing is marketing type of world where we now have a CRO type of a function where a CMO will report up to a CRO and you have sales and marketing aligned totally together. The one key component in that is to get the IT guys involved as well. The minute you have collaboration at the top, that will transcend all the way down to the bottom of your organization, and you'll see insights coming from individual contributors that when they leverage these tools and these processes, that will give you insights from the front line, and that as you guys as business managers will be able to act on that insight very, very quickly, and ultimately then go harvest that revenue that you've created.
That's a great point. You want to make sure that not only are you able to collaborate with coworkers and people as the process moves through, but really want to make sure that you're able to get the insights that are available from everybody being on the same page. Great points. So we do have a quick question, which is great timing now because we'll jump into the Q&A. So now that we're here, welcome to the Q&A. The first question we want to start out with came from an attendee. He said, I have a retail store but want to start selling online next year. What's a good way to get started? How can I set myself up for success? So let's start out with Kevin, if you have any thoughts on how to get started online and how to make sure that they're setting themselves up for success.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, getting started online, you want to basically choose a platform that's going to work real well for you guys and get something in place that you can see that you can utilize for the future. So you want to make sure that, again, everyone's on the same page. You're getting into a system that's going to work for you guys, and you've evaluated all your options out there and really brought them essentially to the next level, knowing that this is going to be the future of your business and how you can kind of develop a plan for growing and becoming more successful in the future.
Awesome. Asher, any thoughts on preparing wisely for moving from retail to online?
Sorry, I was on mute. I agree with what Kevin said. I mean, he nailed it right there.
All right, excellent. From the Webgility perspective, we obviously want to make sure that as you expand online, that you're still not losing the insights that you're used to. So similar to a lot of the things that we've mentioned so far, make sure that you've got the data flowing smoothly, make sure that you're able to leverage the team that you currently have for both fulfillment data as well as that financial insight. So keeping the order data coming into your QuickBooks file or your Xero file and leveraging your accountant to do something other than data entry, we think is a big part of being successful. So we'll move on to the next question from Chase. It says, the state offices don't answer tax questions clearly. Does Avalara provide what is taxable, not taxable in each state and provide assurance if Avalara is wrong in a particular state?
Yeah, so there's two parts of the question. So yes, we do help you with understanding which items are taxed where. It's called the Nexus study, and we have people on staff. And then we do have a tax rate guarantee that is available on our website. If you just Google Avalara tax guarantee, you'll get there, or you can go to our website, go to the right-hand section, and go to the to the guarantee section. It's something that's brand new that we've started. It took us a lot of time, but then ultimately we came down to it. What it came down to is saying, look, if we can't guarantee what we're saying, then what's the point? So we do. And again, if you want more information, either just put your information in the chat box or drop one of the presenters an email. I'm pretty sure we're going to share our email addresses, and I can get you connected with the right people internally.
Excellent. Excellent answer. And obviously, a lot of things depend, but move with the experts. So next question up from Andrea. How do you leverage customer data captured by systems like Webgility to build relationships with customers on other platforms, via social media or using other methods? So I guess this is a question for me. Awesome. A quick and easy way to make sure that you're leveraging data smoothly and easily is to recognize customers based on what they're buying and their frequency. So if you have, for example, a clothing line, and you're noticing that a particular product is being sold very frequently or is coming in particular waves with maybe a new fashion or certain days of the week, it makes sense to then take that and use it as your promoted item, or to ask some of those customers for testimonials about how they enjoy the product, or even getting photos to then share back with social media or in other types of advertisement. It really is a sort of wide open space right now. In other industries, there's a lot of process around sales and CRM, but with e-commerce, understanding your customers and what they're buying and when is still a very, very green pasture and open space to leverage. For us, we encourage everyone to take those trends, so the large macro trends of what items are selling and if there's any trends with the customer, and turn that out into an idea to gather more of the same or to promote alternative items. Another quick way is just to segment customers in an email list so that they're getting a drip campaign that relates to the products that they buy and from what sales channels they do buy. All right, so we'll move on to the next one. How does QuickBooks integrate with other apps on Right networks?
Oh, great. Yeah, so I think that QuickBooks, in terms of the integration with other apps, I think some folks have a hard time visualizing what it would be like and how it's going to behave in a cloud-based environment. And the good thing to think about is it really is still the desktop version of QuickBooks that people have always been using on their local systems. What we're doing is bringing it to the cloud and bringing these enterprise class features, again, like collaboration, fully managed environment, backups, support, et cetera, et cetera. And the way it configures and actually behaves with applications is very similar to how it would on your local system or on your local server. And we do that with a couple of like our secret sauce and the technology we use to make it actually perform exactly the same. Therefore, there's no learning curve for you guys. Or if a small medium business comes online or gets onto the cloud the first time and they're using WebGility and Avalara and QuickBooks, it's going to be very similar experience from an actual integration standpoint and utilizing the software as it would be locally. So there isn't this giant learning curve of learning a whole brand new software. Things actually do operate very much the same, except you're now in the cloud, it's now secure, and you don't have to worry about if your PC dies, and you can now access it from anywhere, and all the other benefits of the cloud kind of tied into one.
Excellent, excellent points. So just to follow up on that, do you recommend selling on channels that complement each other? And can you elaborate on that? I think we'll make that open for everybody, and I'll tie it in with a couple thoughts there.
As the tax guy, I'll start. I would say absolutely yes. Like as many channels that you want to sell through, do it. Just make sure that you have a good offer strategy. Meaning, if you're leveraging print and then online both at the same time, that you have a promotion for print that's either unified with online or it's separate, even if you're going after different audiences. Too many times I see that stores or businesses will put a promotion out there that's kind of competing against themselves, because the person or the end customer could buy the same product via a store for 10% off, and then when they go online it's like 12% off. So it's like one side of the business is doing really well when the other side of the business is not doing well, and that leads you to making some pretty interesting business decisions. So I would go back to like the offer strategy. Sell as many places as you can, but just have a kick-ass offer strategy.
Excellent points. I'll add to that you want to make sure you're not competing with your other products, your other brands, or the customers that may be finding you on different channels, because then, as Asher pointed out, you're going to end up competing with your alternative offer. So one of the suggestions we always have is if you're going to be using multiple shopping carts, separating out by brands and products so that your pricing is never in conflict with each other, and then looking at the marketplaces as sort of fire hoses to drive new interest to your products, but not necessarily a place that you have to be pushing discounts or deals as much as it may seem. So there's a lot of costs that go with selling on like an Amazon or an eBay, and keep those in mind so that you're not undercutting yourself. But at the same time, if you have your own online presence, you have your own branded website, that it's in harmony with any others that you may be spinning out as well. So unfortunately, we're reaching the end of our hour here, and although we appreciate all of your time, we want to make sure that we let you get back to the rest of your day. So join us next week. We also have another webinar coming up. It's going to be with Bronto, and it's called A Better Way to Say Welcome. We'll show you how to get set up for an email welcome series to take advantage of new customers and subscribers for the holiday season. And you can always go to webagility.com/webinars to register. I want to take a moment again to thank both of our panelists, Kevin and Asher, and everyone for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, guys. Have a great one.
Thank you.